Billionaire CEO gives 4 black credit cards to test 4 women. What black waitress picked shocked him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into this dramatic story. Picture this, a high-end restaurant, the kind where billionaires, tech moguls, and celebrities come to close deals and show off their wealth. The walls are adorned with expensive art, the chandeliers hanging overhead casting soft, warm light over polished marble floors. The guests are impeccably dressed, the sound of glasses clinking and murmurs of business deals fill the air. At the center of this opulence, Richard Kessler, a billionaire CEO, stands, commanding the room with his presence. He is known for his cutthroat business tactics and no-nonsense attitude. He built his empire from the ground up, and tonight, he's orchestrating a challenge. For women, all invited to this exclusive dinner, each representing a different social class, are seated at the table. The challenge is simple. Each woman will be handed a black credit card. The card, of course, symbolizes power, prestige, and wealth. But the catch? Only one of them will be able to keep the card. The rest? They will lose out. The stakes are high, and the women, eager to prove their worth, have no idea what's coming. Among them is Cassandra, a black waitress who has been serving the wealthy guests for years, never once thinking she would be included in this game. She watches from a distance, her hands steady as she carries trays of wine and appetizers to the guests, her eyes keenly observing the scene unfolding before her. She's seen it all, the mockery, the condescension, the treatment of the staff as nothing more than background noise in the grand symphony of the rich and powerful. As the CEO lays out the terms, the tension in the room thickens. He explains the challenge. The women must choose one of the 4 black credit cards laid before them. The cards are identical in appearance, sleek and shiny, but only. One holds the promise of wealth and opportunity. The others are just for show. The women hesitate, glancing at each other, unsure of how to proceed. Their choices will be scrutinized, judged, and tested. It's not just a game of chance. It's a test of character, of who is worthy enough to hold the power represented by the card. The challenge has begun, but the real twist lies in what happens next. As the women prepare to make their choices, Cassandra, the quiet waitress, steps forward unexpectedly. She isn't part of the test, not officially. But something about the way she stands there, unafraid, her back straight and eyes sharp, catches the attention of everyone in the room. Without a word, she picks up a card, not the one anyone expected her to choose, but the one that holds no apparent value. Her choice is puzzling. It's unexpected, and it's about to change everything. The CEO, caught off guard by her boldness, watches as she slides the card across the table, her expression calm, almost unreadable. The room falls silent. No one knows what to make of this. Was it a mistake? A challenge? Or something else entirely? The power in the room shifts, the air thick with anticipation. What happens next will leave everyone stunned. As Cassandra places the black credit card on the table, the room falls into an almost suffocating silence. The other women, who had carefully chosen their cards, stare at her with disbelief. Richard Kessler, the billionaire CEO, looks like he's just been caught off guard. His sharp eyes narrow as he leans back in his chair, studying Cassandra, trying to decipher her actions. What she did was bold. It was unexpected. And yet, in the stillness of the room, it felt like something much larger than a mere game was unfolding. Cassandra's gaze remained steady, unwavering, as if she already knows the power she just unleashed. The CEO's confidence begins to falter, his eyes flickering from the card back to her. The guests around the table murmur quietly, uncertain how to react to this twist. Richard clears his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. "You sure about this?" he asks, his voice a little too calm, though there's a subtle edge to it now. Cassandra doesn't respond right away. She doesn't need to. The silence speaks for her. It's clear to everyone. Now that this is no longer just a test about the cards. This is something deeper, something more significant. As the guests wait for Cassandra to explain herself, Richard's smug grin begins to slip, replaced by an uncomfortable frown. He's used to being the one in control, the one who calls the shots, but right now, he's the one being tested. The women around him shift uncomfortably in their seats. They came here for an easy win, a chance to impress him and secure their future. But now, they're all watching Cassandra, waiting to see how she'll play this game. Without a word, Cassandra picks up the card she chose and slides it back toward Richard. He stares at it, his brow furrowing as he wonders why she would pick the one that seems to hold no value. "This is not a game," she says softly, her voice firm but calm. "I don't need this to define me." The room goes still. Richard is taken aback. He was expecting her to be impressed, to be awed by the power he was offering. Instead, she rejects it, and in doing so, she's shattering the illusion of control he so carefully built. "You think this is all about money?" Cassandra continues, her gaze never leaving his. "It's about something much more valuable. Dignity, respect, humanity." Richard's eyes flicker with surprise, his confidence rattled. For the first time, he's unsure of how to proceed. The other women, still holding their cards, look at each other, confused. They thought this was just a game. But it's not. It's a moment of reckoning. Cassandra's words hang in the air like a challenge, a defiance against everything Richard stands for. He's built his empire on the backs of people like her, people who serve, people who are invisible. And yet, here she is, standing taller than any of them. The air feels thick with tension as Richard shifts in his seat, his mind racing. He's never had anyone question his authority like this before, never had anyone so openly reject his power. The silence stretches on, and for a brief moment, Richard wonders if he's lost more than just a test. He's lost the game. The room is still, and all eyes are on him. He doesn't know how to respond. He doesn't know what to do next. And in that silence, it becomes clear, he's been bested, not by a card, but by a person who understands something he never did. Cassandra doesn't need his card to prove her worth. She doesn't need his validation. What she has is already far more powerful: self-respect, dignity, and a quiet strength that's impossible to ignore. The realization hits Richard like a ton of bricks. For the first time in years, he feels small. And Cassandra? She stands, unmoved, as she walks away from the table, her head held high. The room is left in stunned silence. What happens next will shock everyone. But in this moment, Cassandra has already won. The silence in the room lingers, heavy and thick, as Richard Kessler, the billionaire CEO, stares at the card Cassandra left behind. His confidence has been rattled, and for the first time in a long while, he's unsure. He had expected this dinner, this test, to be nothing more than a game, a way to assert his dominance and remind everyone of his power. But instead, Cassandra, the quiet waitress, has thrown a wrench into everything. She rejected his offer, his test of material wealth, and in doing so, she's forced him to confront something deeper, something he's been avoiding for years, the real meaning of respect. Cassandra walks away from the table, her stride steady, her head high. She doesn't need anyone's approval. She doesn't need to prove herself with a shiny black credit card. She already knows who she is. She already knows her worth. As she moves past the table of wealthy guests, she can feel their eyes on her, some filled with confusion, others with curiosity. They expected her to fall in line, to fawn over the power that the black credit card symbolized. But Cassandra isn't interested in their expectations. She's lived her whole life being invisible to people like them. But tonight, she's made them see her. It's not the money that defines her. It's the strength and dignity that she carries inside. Richard, still sitting at the head of the table, watches her retreat. He's torn, his mind spinning with questions. Why did she pick the card with no value? Why didn't she choose the one with the promise of luxury, power, and endless possibilities? What was it that she understood that he didn't? The other women, who had eagerly accepted the challenge, now sit in stunned silence. They realize that they've been playing by the wrong rules. They were so focused on winning the card, on winning his approval, that they failed to see the true test. And now, it's too late. Richard leans forward, his elbows on the table, his fingers steepled in front of him. He's been bested, not by the other women, but by Cassandra. She's shown him that the power he wields means nothing if it's not rooted in something real, something meaningful. As the realization sinks in, a wave of shame washes over him. He's used to controlling people, used to being the one who calls the shots. But in this moment, He's the one who's been controlled. And by someone who has nothing but quiet grace. He stands, the weight of the moment pressing down on him, and starts to move toward the exit. But before he can leave, one of the other women at the table, a younger woman who had been vying for his approval, speaks up. "What are you going to do?" she asks, her voice trembling slightly. "She just beat you at your own game." Richard pauses, the words sinking in. He looks back at the table, at the women who had once been his audience, his tools. But now, they're just as lost as he is. His power, his wealth, have been stripped away in a single moment. It wasn't Cassandra's actions that had brought him down. It was the realization that he had built his empire on the wrong foundation. He looks back one last time at the door where Cassandra disappeared and sighs. For the first time in his life, he doesn't feel like the king of the world. He feels like a man who has been humbled. Cassandra doesn't care about the cards, the wealth, or the flashy gestures. She cares about something more real, more powerful, integrity. As the night draws to a close, she continues her work, moving through the restaurant, unnoticed once again by the wealthy patrons. But tonight, she knows she has changed the game. And maybe, just maybe, she's changed Richard too. The next morning, the story of the billionaire CEO and the black waitress who rejected his challenge spreads across the internet. News outlets pick it up, social media explodes with reactions. Everyone is talking about Cassandra, about her quiet strength, about how she stood up in a room full of powerful men and women and showed them all what true power really is. Richard Kessler, once the untouchable CEO, is now the subject of ridicule, his empire starting to crack at the seams. He's been shown for who he truly is, a man who thought he could control everything, but who has now learned that respect can never be bought. As for Cassandra, she doesn't care for the attention. She knows the true value of her actions, and that's all that matters. She's earned something far more precious than a black credit card. She's earned her own self-respect. And that, she knows, is the only currency that will ever matter. As the sun rises the following morning, the air in the city feels different, heavier with the weight of what has transpired. The night before, Cassandra's bold rejection of Richard Kessler's challenge had rippled through the room, and now the echoes of her defiance are spreading. The restaurant where the dinner took place remains a hub of whispers, its once pristine image now cracked by a single moment of truth. News outlets are abuzz with headlines about the billionaire CEO and the black waitress who rejected a black credit card in front of a room full of power. Social media, too, has caught fire with debate. Some are praising Cassandra for her dignity, while others are stunned by the audacity of her actions. Meanwhile, Richard Kessler is struggling to find his footing. His once unshakable confidence has been shattered, not by the other women at the table, but by the quiet strength of someone he underestimated. His empire, built on control and wealth, suddenly feels fragile, as though it could all crumble with one wrong move. The press hounds him, questioning his leadership, his values, even his public persona. For the first time in years, he is no longer the one holding the power in the room. That power has shifted into the hands of someone who had nothing but integrity. Richard tries to brush it off at first, telling himself it was just a test, a game that didn't matter. But as the day goes on, the reality sets in. The whispers, the stories, the social media posts, they're all pointing to one undeniable truth. He's been shown up by a waitress, a woman with no money, no title, and no business in the game he thought he controlled. It stings. The kind of sting that only comes when pride meets its limit. As for Cassandra, she wakes up to the news, but she's not checking her phone for validation. She doesn't care about the viral posts or the sudden attention. What matters is that she stayed true to herself. She walks into the restaurant again, her shift beginning like any other, her hands steady as she moves from table to table, taking orders, serving drinks, just as she's done 1,000 times before. But now, everything feels different. The guests look at her differently, some with admiration, others with confusion. They know her name now, not just as the waitress who serves them, but as the woman who stood up to a billionaire. Yet, despite all the attention, Cassandra remains the same. She's not a hero. She's just a woman doing her job, doing it well. But something has shifted inside her. She doesn't need the approval of the wealthy. She doesn't need the validation of a black credit card. What she needs is to keep her head high, to keep doing what she does best, and to never forget what her integrity is worth. Meanwhile, Richard Kessler is grappling with his own demons. He can't shake the feeling that he's lost something he'll never get back. He's been in control of his entire world for so long. But Cassandra's simple act of defiance has left him feeling powerless. He can't stop thinking about her words. "I don't need this to define me." They echo in his mind, reminding him of the emptiness in his pursuit of power, of wealth, of control. It's a bitter pill to swallow. He's been humbled in a way that no business deal or acquisition can undo. In the days that follow, Richard reaches out to Cassandra, not through the media, not through his public relations team, but directly. He asks for a meeting, and much to his surprise, she agrees. When they sit face to face, he doesn't know what to expect. He's not sure if she'll be angry, if she'll want to confront him, or if she'll even want to speak to him at all. But when they meet, there's no anger in her eyes. There's no bitterness. There's just a calm, unwavering presence. She doesn't need to prove anything to him. She's already proven everything. Richard opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out at first. He's never been at a loss for words. But in this moment, with Cassandra sitting across from him, he doesn't know how to apologize, doesn't know how to make amends. Instead, he simply looks at her, a man who has spent his life trying to control the world, now faced with the undeniable truth that he's been bested by a woman who never sought power in the first place. After a long pause, he finally speaks, his voice quieter than usual. "I was wrong," he says. "You taught me something last night. Something I've spent my whole life ignoring. And I don't know how to fix it, but I owe you that much." Cassandra doesn't say anything at first. She simply looks at him, her expression neutral. "You didn't know me anything," she replies. "But now you know." And with that, the conversation ends. Richard leaves, a little bit lighter than he was when he entered, but still carrying the weight of his realization. As for Cassandra, she goes back to her shift, her quiet strength now a part of her story, a story that no amount of wealth or power could ever overshadow. As the days pass, things begin to change for both Cassandra and Richard. The ripple effect of their confrontation has spread far beyond the walls of the restaurant. Cassandra's actions have been talked about in boardrooms, on social media, and in private conversations between the rich and powerful. She's become a symbol of quiet strength, of someone who refused to bow to the expectations of a world that tried to define her by her job, her race, or her social class. But for Cassandra, none of this matters. She still shows up for her shifts, still serves the wealthy guests with the same calm professionalism she's always had. But now, when she walks through the restaurant, there's a different energy in the air. People look at her with a new kind of respect, some of them even nodding as she passes, acknowledging the quiet revolution she's sparked. Richard, on the other hand, is struggling to find his way. He's been humbled in a way he never expected, and it's taking a toll on him. He's used to controlling the narrative, used to being the one who calls the shots, but now, he feels lost. His empire, built on power, money, and influence, feels like it's starting to crack. The media is hounding him, questioning his leadership, his ethics, and his public persona. Cassandra's simple rejection of his challenge has exposed cracks in the carefully constructed facade he spent years building. But it's more than just the public backlash. Richard can't stop thinking about Cassandra. He can't stop thinking about how she stood up to him without saying a word, how she rejected the very thing he thought would buy her respect. She didn't need his money, his validation, or his approval. She had something more valuable, her own self-respect. Richard knows that he has a lot of work to do, both with his company and with himself. He can't ignore the lessons Cassandra has taught him. For the first time in his life, he's questioning what truly matters. It's not the power, the deals, or the money. It's the integrity, the dignity, and the respect that he's ignored for so long. As the weeks go by, Richard reaches out to Cassandra again, this time through a more personal gesture. He asks her to meet him outside of the restaurant, away from the spotlight, away from the world that's been watching them both. He's nervous, unsure of what to say, but he knows that he has to try to make amends. When they meet, there's no fanfare, no grand gesture. It's just the two of them, standing in the quiet of a small cafe, away from the eyes of the public. Richard doesn't know where to start. "I've spent my whole life thinking that power was everything," he says, his voice low. "But you showed me that it's not. You taught me that respect, integrity, and dignity are the things that matter most." Cassandra listens, her expression soft but unwavering. She knows that this is a moment of reckoning for Richard, but she doesn't need to say anything. He's already said it all. I want to thank you, Richard continues, for teaching me what I've been too blind to see. Cassandra nods, her eyes meeting his. It's not about me, she says quietly. It's about you. You've got the power to change, to do better. But that's something only you can decide. Richard takes a deep breath, the weight of her words settling over him. He knows she's right. The choice is his. He's at a crossroads, and for the first time, he realizes that he has the power to choose what kind of man he wants to be. As they part ways that afternoon, Richard feels a sense of clarity he hasn't had in years. He knows the road ahead won't be easy, but he's willing to walk it. For the first time, he understands that true leadership isn't about control. It's about respect, about listening, about learning from those around you. For Cassandra, nothing has really changed. She goes back to work, still serving, still living her life with the same quiet dignity. But now, she carries herself with a newfound sense of peace. She knows that the world has seen her, that her actions have had an impact, and that's enough for her. As Richard begins the process of rebuilding his company and his reputation, he knows that the lessons he's learned from Cassandra will stay with him forever. He won't forget her, and he won't forget what she taught him. And for the first time, he's beginning to understand what true power really is. Months have passed since the dinner that changed everything, and life has quietly moved on for both Cassandra and Richard. The ripple effects of that night still linger in the air, but for Cassandra, her life continues just as it always has. She arrives at work each day, a calm, steady presence in the restaurant. She moves with purpose, her demeanor unchanged by the newfound recognition she's gained. While some guests now greet her with a nod of respect, others still try to treat her as they always did. Just another waitress, just another face among many. But Cassandra no longer lets it bother her. She knows her worth now. The quiet strength that she showed that night continues to resonate in her life. She has no need for validation from anyone. Meanwhile, Richard's transformation is far from over, but he is trying. He's learned that humility, the ability to listen, and the understanding of true leadership are not easily acquired, especially for someone who has spent their entire life at the top. He is working to rebuild not just his empire, but himself. Richard has become a different man in some ways, though it's clear he still struggles with old habits. The old drive to dominate, to control every situation, remains within him, but now he's more aware of the damage such attitudes can cause. His company has started to shift, slowly at first, as he begins to focus on the values that he once overlooked. He invests more in community outreach, in the well-being of his employees, and in initiatives that promote diversity and equality. The CEO who once dismissed the significance of human connection is now actively seeking to repair the fractures in his own foundation. However, no matter how many reforms he makes, there's still the nagging thought in his mind, the thought of Cassandra. He's tried to push it away, but her words, her rejection, still echo in his mind. I don't need this to define me. He can't shake the memory of the quiet defiance in her eyes, the strength she carried with such ease. It haunts him, reminding him of the gap between who he was and who he needs to become. Eventually, Richard reaches out to Cassandra once more, but this time, it's different. He's not asking for her forgiveness or seeking some grand gesture. He simply wants to thank her. It's a gesture that has been months in the making. He knows that he can't undo what he's done, but he hopes that, in some small way, he can make things right. When they meet for coffee at a small cafe outside the city, the encounter feels less like a meeting of two people from different worlds and more like two individuals who've walked different paths but are now understanding each other. Cassandra doesn't expect anything from him. She doesn't need him to apologize or make amends. But she listens as Richard speaks, and for the first time, she sees him not as the powerful CEO, but as a man grappling with his own mistakes. Richard admits that he's still learning, still trying to figure out what it means to be a better person, a better leader. You changed me, he says, his voice softer than it's ever been. You made me realize that power isn't the end goal. It's about respect. It's about integrity. Cassandra nods, but she says little. She knows that actions speak louder than words, and Richard has a long road ahead of him. The conversation lingers in the air, filled with unspoken understandings. Cassandra leaves the cafe feeling unchanged, But she knows that this encounter is a significant moment for Richard. Perhaps he's on the right path now. The changes in him may not be immediate, but the seed has been planted. For Cassandra, she knows that the greatest lesson she ever learned wasn't in the rejection of the black credit card or the challenge she faced. It was in understanding her own worth and standing firm in her values, no matter who was watching. As the weeks turn into months, Richard continues to work on himself and his company. He knows he will never be the same man he was before that night. And perhaps, just perhaps, he is starting to understand that power is not about control or wealth. It's about the people you empower along the way. For Cassandra, life continues as it always has. She serves, she smiles, and she lives her truth. But there is a quiet pride in her now, knowing that her actions made a difference. In the end, the real currency is not in cards or money, but in the lasting impact you leave on others. As the months continue to unfold, Richard Kessler's journey toward personal growth has become a quiet, yet constant process. His once ironclad confidence is now tempered with humility, and his business practices are slowly shifting. The billionaire CEO is learning to prioritize people over profits, integrity over image. But despite his efforts, some of the weight remains. He finds himself thinking about Cassandra more often than he'd like to admit. There are moments when he still questions what truly drives him. Power? Success? Or something deeper, something more meaningful? It is a struggle that lingers within him. He's tried to focus on the changes he's made within his company, investing in employee welfare, supporting charitable causes, and promoting diversity and inclusion. But nothing compares to the quiet revolution that Cassandra sparked in him. As for Cassandra, life has returned to its usual rhythm. She still works the same shifts, still serves with the same quiet dignity, but something in her has shifted too. Her inner peace has grown stronger, the pride she feels in her choices deeper. The small, everyday gestures of kindness and respect now carry more meaning to her. It's as though the world has become a little more in tune with who she is. The guests, the wealthy patrons who once looked past her, now seem to see her differently. They speak to her with more respect, acknowledging her presence with nods or smiles. Some even ask about her life, her dreams. But she doesn't let it go to her head. She knows that true worth isn't measured by the validation of others, especially those who once treated her as invisible. One day, as Cassandra finishes her shift, she receives a letter in the mail. It's from Richard. The letter is simple, a gesture that she hadn't expected. In it, Richard thanks her once again for the lessons she taught him, but more than that, he asks if she would consider joining a new initiative he's launching. He's created a foundation focused on empowering underrepresented voices in business, and he wants Cassandra to be a part of it. The offer is generous, the kind of opportunity that could change her life. But Cassandra, ever grounded, isn't swayed by the offer. She knows that her worth isn't something to be handed to her. It's something she's already built for herself. She takes a moment to think, and then, with a calm determination, she writes back. She thanks Richard for the offer, but she explains that her path isn't about taking a seat at his table. Her path is about continuing to serve with dignity, to lead by example in her own quiet way. She doesn't need the spotlight. She already has everything she needs. Richard receives her response, and it leaves him with a sense of respect and admiration that he hadn't anticipated. He understands now, more than ever, that true leaders don't demand recognition. They earn it through their actions. He puts her letter in a drawer, alongside the many notes he's received over the years, but this one feels different. It's a reminder that while power can be gained through wealth, respect must be earned through character. For Cassandra, nothing changes. She continues her work, still unnoticed by many, but at peace with herself. She knows the value of her work, the importance of what she does. And that's enough. As Richard looks around at his empire, he realizes that the greatest change isn't in the company or the investments. The greatest change is within himself. The lessons Cassandra taught him are now embedded in everything he does. It's a slow process, but he's becoming the man he always should have been. And while Cassandra doesn't see herself as a hero, in Richard's eyes, she will always be the person who showed him the true meaning of power. As the months turn into years, Cassandra's quiet revolution continues. She is no longer the waitress who was invisible to the world. She is a woman who stands tall in her own truth, knowing that true value isn't found in cards, wealth, or recognition. It's found in the integrity of one's actions and the strength to stay true to one's principles. As the seasons change, so too do the paths of Cassandra and Richard, though they are no longer intertwined in the way they once were. Their worlds, once colliding with intensity, have now settled into a quiet understanding. Cassandra continues her life, as grounded as ever, but the ripples of her actions still echo in ways she never expected. The respect she's earned from those around her is genuine, and while it isn't flashy or full of recognition, it's enough. She's no longer the woman just serving tables. She is someone who stands as an example of quiet strength and integrity. People who used to ignore her now stop to listen, to ask her about her thoughts, her life. Her confidence doesn't need loud declarations. It simply exists in her stillness, in her unshakable belief in her own worth. One afternoon, as she's wiping down a table at the restaurant, a familiar face appears at the door. It's Richard, standing in the entrance with a look of determination on his face. He hasn't been to the restaurant in months, not since that day when everything changed. And yet, here he is again, no longer the man who controls the room, but someone who, for the first time in years, seems unsure of how to move forward. Cassandra notices him immediately, and instead of the guarded look she once might have given, she simply nods. "I see you're back," she says, her voice calm but warm. Richard nods, walking toward her. "I wanted to apologize again," he begins, his voice tinged with something deeper than regret, almost as if he's trying to piece together something broken inside himself. "But this time, it's not just about the past. It's about moving forward. I've been doing a lot of thinking." Cassandra doesn't respond right away. She just lets him speak, giving him the space to find his words. The man who once would have commanded attention in any room now seems humbled by her quiet presence. "I've spent my life chasing success, proving that I could conquer the world," Richard continues. "But it wasn't until I met you that I realized something. Success means nothing if it's not built on respect, integrity, and humanity." Cassandra remains silent, not because she doesn't care, but because she's learned that actions speak louder than words. Richard doesn't need her validation anymore. He's come to his own realization. "I've started a new initiative," he says, his voice more hopeful now. "It's about giving back, about helping those who are often overlooked. I'm trying to do better, and I think you should be a part of it. Not because of what you can do for me, but because of what you've taught me about true leadership." Cassandra looks at him for a moment, the sincerity in his eyes unmistakable. She can see the changes in him, the work he's put in to become a better person. But she also knows that this journey is his, not hers. "You've already made the difference," she says softly, "and you don't need me for that. You have everything inside you to continue on this path. Just keep learning, keep listening." Richard's shoulders seem to relax as she speaks, and for the first time in their interactions, he doesn't feel the need to push his agenda. He simply listens, taking in her words. "Thank you," he says quietly, genuinely. "I won't forget this." Cassandra gives him a small, knowing smile. It's not about forgetting. It's about doing better every day. As Richard walks away from the restaurant that day, he feels a sense of peace he hasn't had in a long time. The lesson he learned from Cassandra wasn't just about respect. It was about the power of change, the courage to evolve, and the humility it takes to truly grow. For Cassandra, nothing outwardly changes. She continues to serve, to live, to work, but there's a deeper sense of fulfillment now. She's done something meaningful, something lasting, and it isn't measured in money or status. It's measured in the quiet impact she's had on the people around her. She's the same person she's always been, but now, her sense of self is stronger than ever. She's not waiting for the world to change her. She's the one who's changing the world, one quiet act of integrity at a time. As time moves on, Cassandra continues her quiet revolution. She's learned that her strength doesn't lie in what the world gives her, but in what she has the power to create for herself. Her journey wasn't about proving anyone wrong or showing that she was better than those who doubted her. It was about remaining true to herself, no matter the circumstances. And now, with each passing day, she feels more aligned with her purpose. Richard, too, continues his transformation. His work is far from over, but the seeds that Cassandra planted within him have begun to sprout. His company is slowly changing, and so is his approach to life. He's no longer the man who measured success by how much he could accumulate or control. He's learning to see the people around him, to value them for more than their worth in the market. His interactions with employees, partners, and even strangers are different now. He listens more, talks less, and shows up with a humility that surprises even him. But there's still one thing that lingers in his mind, the feeling that he hasn't fully done enough. He continues to reach out to those he's wronged, to make amends where he can, and to bring integrity into the heart of his business. One afternoon, months after their last meeting, Richard finds himself back at the same restaurant where everything began. He's not here to apologize or seek redemption. He's here simply to thank Cassandra for everything she's done. He sits at the same table, the one where they had their first real conversation. His presence here is different now, more grounded, more at peace. As he waits for Cassandra to come to his table, he takes a deep breath. This is no longer about his own pride or image. It's about acknowledging the journey he's been on, the lessons he's learned, and the people who made it all possible. Cassandra walks in, her calm demeanor unchanged, but there's a subtle difference in the way she carries herself. She knows that her purpose hasn't shifted. She still serves with dignity and grace. She still lives by the same principles that guided her from the beginning. But there's a quiet satisfaction in her that wasn't there before. She's built something from within herself that no one can take away. Richard stands up as she approaches, a genuine smile on his face. "Cassandra," he begins, his voice filled with sincerity, "I wanted to tell you again that you've changed me, more than you could ever know. You've taught me that real power is in humility, in doing right by others, and in living with integrity." Cassandra simply nods, her eyes soft but steady. She knows he means it, and she knows that this is the final step of his journey, that he's finally understanding what she understood all along. "It wasn't me who changed you," she says quietly. "It was your choice to see beyond what you knew. You already had everything you needed. You just had to decide to use it differently." Richard nods, the weight of her words sinking in. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small box. "I want to give you something," he says. "It's not much, but it's a gesture of gratitude. It's a token of what I've learned from you." Cassandra takes the box from him, opening it to reveal a small, simple pendant. It's not flashy or expensive, but it's beautiful in its simplicity, a reminder of everything that truly matters. "This is for you," Richard says, "for the change you've sparked in me, for reminding me of what's truly important." Cassandra smiles softly, her heart full. She doesn't need the pendant, doesn't need any more recognition. She's already made her impact. "Thank you," she says quietly, her voice filled with the kind of gratitude that doesn't need words. Richard watches as she walks away, the same grace and strength in her step as the day they first met. And for the first time in a long time, he feels like he's on the right path. The journey isn't over, but it's no longer about winning or losing. It's about growth, about understanding, and about living a life that aligns with one's values. As Cassandra continues her work, she knows that her path is her own, and that's enough. She's changed lives, including her own. And in doing so, she's left a legacy that doesn't need to be acknowledged or celebrated. It simply is, in every quiet act of integrity, every moment of standing firm in her truth. The real power isn't in what she takes from the world, it's in what she gives to it. And that, more than anything, is what makes her truly wealthy. Discover the powerful journey in this inspiring story about a Black waitress who defied expectations and changed the lives of those around her. In a world where wealth and power often define success, this Black story showcases the true meaning of strength, integrity, and dignity. Follow the journey of a woman who, through her quiet yet profound actions, forces a billionaire CEO to confront his values and rethink what truly matters. This is not just a tale of defiance, but a story of transformation. Watch as the CEO learns that real leadership is about more than control. It's about empathy, respect, and listening. This Black story illustrates how one person can make a difference, challenging stereotypes and reshaping perceptions. Through her rejection of materialism and her unwavering belief in her own worth, she teaches those around her a valuable lesson. Power is earned through character, not wealth. Join us in exploring this moving Black story and see how the choices we make shape our lives and the world around us. Whether you're seeking inspiration, a reminder of the importance of values, or simply a story that resonates with your own experiences, this black story will stay with you long after it's over.